immigrants residing in the United States, temporary protected status, also referred to as TPS, is a humanitarian measure that offers them temporary refuge from returning to countries where there is an armed conflict or natural disaster, conditions that prevent them from returning safely. Immigration activists say that since its inception in 1990 as part of the Immigration Act, TPS has offered a lifeline to the thousands of people facing dire circumstances, embodying the nation's commitment to compassion and human dignity. Nils Kinuani is a human rights advocate and federal policy manager for the organization African Communities Together. Nils is calling on the U.S. Department of Homeland Security to grant temporary protected status for Congolese and Ethiopian citizens in the U.S. He joins me in studio to talk more about the TPS and what this campaign is about. Nils, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Jackson. Thank you for having me.
You're here to talk to us about an issue related to temporary protected status, TPS. Tell us what it means and who does it apply to usually.
Thank you, Jackson. Thank you for having me. And as you said, my name is Nils Kinuani. I'm the Federal Policy Manager for African Communities Together. And TPS, to answer your question, TPS is a temporary humanitarian relief, so a temporary immigration status that is granted to immigrants whose home country is going through conditions that make it almost impossible for those immigrants to safely return home.
So those are immigrants in the U.S.
Yes.
that are here legally? Or
legally or illegally.
Yeah. Legally or illegally.
Right.
But they're not able to go back because of the conditions in their countries.
Due to unsafe
either
conditions.
War or conflict or famine or whatever it is.
So, so essentially, three conditions that would qualify a country for a TPS designation. Number one is armed conflict. War, and number two is environmental disaster, so flooding, hurricane, volcano eruptions, and number three includes extraordinary conditions, so thinking about the Ebola or COVID pandemic.
Yeah, the Ebola pandemic in West Africa a couple of years ago,
right,
2016.
Yeah. So those are the conditions that would, under which a TPS designation can be granted. So a TPS designation is granted to a country, and a country experiencing those conditions, and nationals from that country then will benefit from TPS, will be granted that temporary status.
Okay. So how does this TPS intersect with other immigration policies or pathways such as asylum or refugee status?
So TPS, temporary protected status, is temporary in nature. So it's granted for a certain amount of time, usually 18 months. And so that's first, and then second, it does not lead to a permanent status or citizenship. So those are the two characteristics that make TPS different from asylum or refugee status or other permanent status.
And in your opinion, what are some of the potential improvements or reforms that could be made to the TPS system currently as it stands?
Yeah, so for now, my organization, African Communities Together, we are working and leading efforts to have this administration extend the TPS to some African countries, and we believe that conditions in certain countries in Africa, and currently we're working on DRC and Ethiopia, and we believe that conditions in those countries warrant a TPS designation.
So what are some of some misconceptions about TPS that you've encountered, whether it's on the policy level by, people, members of Congress, or people that are working on this, or even the community with which you're dealing with?
So as I mentioned earlier, TPS is temporary. It's a temporary immigration status, and it protects recipient from deportation. So when you are granted TPS, you are able to stay in the country legally, and it gives recipient work authorization. And the misconception is that folks might think that TPS is a permanent status or can lead to a permanent status or citizenship. So it's important to note that it's temporary in nature and is based on those conditions.
Are there countries right now that have been designated, or members of certain countries that have been given that TPS?
Yes, yes. So there are countries that are given that status, the TPS designation. And as I said, our organization is currently working on a TPS designation for Ethiopia. Ethiopia has been granted TPS, but we want, given worsening country conditions in the country, we are leading effort to have that designation extended, and the country itself being redesignated for TPS.
How often is it reviewed?
So as I said, the initial period is 18 months.
18 months, okay.
Right.
Okay, so every 18 months, there is, they look at it and see whether the conditions have changed in that country.
Right.
And then do they seek any type of, I guess, input from community organizations like yours?
Yeah, so we've been engaging with the government to make sure that they're staying informed on the current conditions, and also there is interagency collaboration on assessing the conditions for a specific country.
And so what are some of the benefits for a person who has TPS status in America?
Yeah, so we believe TPS will benefit our communities greatly because, as I said, TPS protect individuals from deportation. As you know, deportation destroys our communities. Deportation takes away our community members, our family members from our communities, from our family. So TPS will give our community members that peace of mind and that protection to stay in the country legally, to continue to contribute to our communities and to the country, and also giving folks the ability to access job opportunities, because TPS gives work authorization. So those are very essential to our brothers and sisters here in the U.S.
Have there, I mean, each administration has its own policies usually. I know one of the biggest issues politically in this country is around immigration. Have there been any changes recently or developments related to TPS policies or legislation?
No. So there has not been any legislative or regulatory changes to the program, but we believe that this administration should use its authority to extend TPS to those countries. And we also are working on DRC. DRC is now going through one of the deadliest and longest armed conflict since World War II or in modern history, and we strongly believe the conditions there warrant TPS. So really pushing this administration to extend TPS to those countries.
Okay, so is it Congress that extends, or is it the administration?
The administration. So the Secretary of Homeland Security has that authority to designate a country for TPS, but also that is done in collaboration with other administration agencies.
And what is the attitude so far, based on some of the communication or engagement you've had in terms of these two countries receiving the designation? Yeah,
so when you look at the conditions on the ground, we strongly believe that extending TPS for those countries should be an easy decision for the administration, again, given on the conditions. But unfortunately, we're not seeing that much movement on those decisions.
So why do you think that is? Is it because it's part of a wider political fight that is happening right now around that same issue?
Part of it, but our organization is working hard, diligently to put the concerns of African immigrants on the national immigration agenda, making sure that African immigrants can also benefit from those programs, that African immigrants are also the priority on the national immigration agenda.
Now, when we talk about immigration in this country, usually we hear the debate surrounding people coming from South America and other parts of, of the world, not necessarily Africans. How can Africans advocate for themselves more when it comes to issues around immigration, another type of policy?
Yeah, so we need to mobilize, and that's exactly what our organization is doing, mobilizing African immigrants. Our organization is the largest member-led organization of African immigrants in the country, and we work to empower African immigrants to advance economically, to integrate socially, and also to engage civically. So we need to mobilize, we need to raise awareness on this type of immigration programs to make sure that African immigrants, and essentially all immigrants, are protected in this country.
And finally, I mean, the elections are coming up in November, in America. I've seen that a lot of immigrants communities are pushing some of the candidates from their communities to run for local office. Have you seen more African immigrants engage in politics, in local politics, in the last couple of years? And what does that say about the African immigrant constituency?
Yeah, so as I said, our organization works to make sure that African immigrants can engage civically, and part of that work is making sure that we are able to advance policies that will benefit our communities. So we're encouraging our members and the immigrant population in general to really work to advance those policies.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if I should ask you this, but is there some sort of timeline? When will you hear back from Homeland Security Office about whether this TPS designation is accorded to these two countries? So
for Ethiopia, we are expecting a decision mid-April, and for the DRC, there is no, because since it's an initial designation, initial decision that the administration has to make on that request. We don't have a date yet, but we hope that can come sooner rather than later.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Nils Kinuani of the African Communities Together. Thank you for coming to talk to us today.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, appreciate it.